Hello. We're almost ready. Setting up the microphone. It does sound better. We lost our pen.
We're good. We're good.
The panel has temporarily taken leave of absence.
You know what? Perfect.
You guys ready?
We are ready.
Yours is much louder than mine.
It is. You want to turn yours up?
Yeah.
Or switch?
We're
Anthony,
gonna
hang on one
just
second.
scream
Let's
into
turn
it.
you up.
There you go.
Nobody talk about Anthony.
Yell over us.
I can do that.
You gotta talk. You give it a test, Anthony.
Testing 1, 2, 3. That's good.
Perfect.
All right, so the last panel for the 2022 Casino Esports Conference is related to starting organizations. And I'll talk a little bit about that because I've done a couple of esports organizations. And there's a lot of different kind of things related to starting an organization. Agree with what? Starting an organization for esports is something that can be as easy as just getting a bunch of groups of guys together to play some games. But starting an organization that's related to esports wagering and casinos is a very different thing. So right now we're working out the process of how esports leagues and organizations will work with casinos. There are different kinds of organizations that you could arrange for, that we're gonna need created for the casino industry. They include wagering leagues, leagues that are similar to bowling leagues, where people, whether they're local or national or throughout the country or regional, can participate on a regular basis on esports events that they can wager head-to-head, or they can wager, or if we have a collection of records, people can wager on them. There are wagering leagues that could meet on a monthly basis based on participating online, and then you meet in person. Right now, all those processes are being determined. But I think for the sake of this last panel, because we want to give out as much advice to people who might be willing to come into this Atlantic City and help us create this infrastructure that we're trying to create, I'm going to throw some open questions to the panel about organizations and how they think they can contribute to what is being done here. And I'll go to Andrew first, because this is your building.
I wouldn't call it that.
It's under your guys. So Andrew,
I can be removed at any time and thrown to the
even during the panel, that would be something I
Are the
would,
sharks?
I would like to see that during the panel. That'd be interesting. So the Esports Innovation Center was created with the intent to advance esports technologies and organizations in Atlantic City, correct?
Yes, correct.
So what thought have you given, and what thought has Stockton and the organization given to supporting organizations? I know that you had mentioned bringing the Esports Trade Association here as a local hub. Can
Sure.
you talk more about what you want to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, that was just an idea thrown out to you because I know you're heavily involved there, but they've started to build chapters across the country, in addition, obviously, to the national headquarters that's based in Chicago. But I think the chapters model is a very good model. So getting people that have any stake in the game in esports involved in some sort of ongoing conversation is great. And that's what this venue is. It's a place to facilitate this. So I would say that there's an enormous amount of work that can be done to attract companies to a market, especially when you're trying to grow a segment of the economy. And, Bill, you can talk to this as well, because New Jersey has a very focused approach of going in very specific markets that they're looking to advance and coming up with a model that's a private-public partnership, right, which is what we're in right now. And the idea is to bring in companies that have a vested interest into this area in the growth and development, and find ways to support them both through tax incentives, through mechanisms of I would say, workforce innovation, which is a core of what we're doing, trying to make sure that if they come into this market, that Stockton, which is building an esports program, has the skills being taught that they're looking for specifically to hire. So there's this marriage directly that they know, hey, there's a labor force right here that we can use and utilize to grow. It also requires sort of entrepreneurial people coming in with ideas on how to best merge this esports casino market. You're one of those people, right? So you see a void in the market where, hey, this is what gamers would love doing. And if we could make this happen here, this would be great for the area. There's got to be a lot of different niches out there that it might be drone racing. It might be a lot of different things that I think play right into what we're trying to do to build this entertainment base and build this experience base here. What I always get back to with gamers and gambling is they don't want an experience that's simply pouring money into a machine, watching it disappear and walking away confused. And to me, that is what a slot machine is. I don't even know when I win. I've watched people play and I'm like, is that good? I don't know, there's 12 things going on here and I have no idea if that's good. And I've been in relationships where people just play based on a TV show that they used to watch. So that's the one they gravitate to. The gamer wants to be involved. They want to have a sense of involvement, whether that's head-to-head, peer-to-peer. All these models are viable, and I'm sure the regulatory folks will be happy to look at each of them individually on their own merits and say this makes sense, this doesn't. But it comes down to casinos have this unique place to offer that experience, and companies that are building experiences should be looking at this market to say, okay, this is where I can test it, and this is where I have 27 million tourists coming a year that would be part of this.
Do you foresee the Innovation Center having relationships with the casinos or even presentation days to make it easier for companies that are creating esports?
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
We over time, and again, I can't thank Ari and Ben enough for putting this event together because it was at my behest after the event that they ran in March. I said, even though it's short notice and 6 months turnaround, I want this in Atlantic City to get the Esports Innovation Center rolling and to start to build this conversation. But what the center will be is an ongoing conversation between the stakeholders of esports in the state of New Jersey. That includes the casinos, that includes the folks at the EDA, it includes Stockton University, it includes every university that has an esports program, every K through 12 group that's going to have a program. So the short answer is yes. But we absolutely need to have the casinos be involved in this process so they can learn what technologies are out there, use this as a safe space to test those things out and not be just saying, okay, I'm going to give you a blanket agreement to put something in that I don't know how it's going to perform in there. Let's bring that into this space. Let's test it out. Let's do some real life experimenting with sample groups that come in and see how it plays, and then get it onto casino floor and non-premium space, and then maybe that outperforms a slot machine because you see a different demographic coming in, or maybe they take a non-premium space that was a restaurant and turn it into a hub for esports where you can have every single week tournaments that go on, like Madden on Wednesdays and Mario Kart on Thursdays. And I think if you build that into the casino fabric, it's going to change what people perceive, and then you can then start to focus on the big events and the big picture plan, which again is a whole other layer of organization you could bring in here to support if you were doing truly, premier events like League of Legends semifinals type stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in support of that, our goal is, in fact, when I started at the NJEDA 4 years ago, the first task I was given was to cultivate the esports industry for the state of New Jersey, and that came straight from the governor's office. And so what we've endeavored to do is to demonstrate to the esports industry that we as a state actually get esports, and we're trying to cultivate New Jersey as the hub for it in the country, just like we did with sports betting. And that is a combination, doing that is a combination of having a very collaborative commercial regulatory environment, which has been very embracing to the sports betting community as well as to the esports community, and letting these companies know that we are a very viable collaborative place to come and help grow your business, setting up the center, focusing on workforce development, creating a talent pipeline for the industry. It's just a matter of time before the esports ecosystem recognizes that and begins to sort of see New Jersey as a place to come and set up their business, and the casinos will follow suit in that. And just as a matter of economic circumstance, just a matter of time.
I think it's the size of the economy, but it's also our job to educate, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. It's our job here to educate the casino community through these types of conferences, panels, et cetera, but also to get even more into the weeds and more focused and more, not just sort of rah-rah conversation about how great esports is, but let's really sit down with the executives of casinos and talk logistics. How do things work? How do they run? What's the bottom line? What are you looking for in terms of ROI? And I think those conversations can happen, maybe not in as public a forum, but this is certainly an institution that hopes to facilitate those conversations.
Well, I see it as a middle ground between the casinos and the esports industry to sort of find common ground.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
But with Bill, with the EDA, New Jersey Economic Development Authority, potentially, if you find companies that qualify, you could potentially find partners who might be able to fund the project.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have incentive programs across the board, from startups to big mature companies, depending upon how significant an investment you want to make in New Jersey. The reality is, and I'll use the sports betting industry as an example, New Jersey was legalized for sports betting, I guess, 2018. And we now have over 25 new sports betting platforms in the state of New Jersey, and they've hired over 2,500 people during that time frame. That's just the last 2-3 years. That's a huge amount of new jobs. These are all high-paying jobs as well. We have not had to provide one incentive to get them to come here. They came here because we created a very welcoming environment for them through our regulatory team and through our strategic support as a state from the governor's office to say, hey, we want you here. We'll be your strategic partner. We'll help you with workforce, all the things that make a company say, hey, that state gets it. And that's where we want to be. And I would dare say that there are many other states across the United States right now that don't get esports. So I think we want to be the front runner.
Bill, are you at liberty to talk about the tech company that just added the new facility that I visited recently? I don't want to say anything if it's not public.
The main gear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. But that's a great example. Like we went and took a tour of Main Gear, which makes actual physical hardware. It does laptops and desktops specifically tailored to the esports community in the state of New Jersey, with a massively expanded facility. They also are very esports focused in terms of culture. They make chairs, peripherals, etc. So that's an example of, I saw in there one of the most diverse workforces I've ever seen, and it was young and it was vibrant, and they had a great, just atmosphere. And these were people that loved their work that I could clearly see were gamers that also had jobs in the physical assembly and creation and shipping in every single department. And they literally had monitors all throughout the facility where Twitch was on, and people were watching stuff actively. So that kind of thing is really special to see happen in the state. And I think you're going to get more of that with these types of incentives that groups like the EDA are putting out there to more groups in.
I also see the idea of having the DGE so close by, literally a boardwalk away, to be able to take a look at these concepts from development and kind of sometimes guide or steer them based on what the law allows.
100%. And that's, we have, as a state agency, we have a huge relationship developed with, CCC and DGE, and both of them have full access to this. And this place is a think tank to kind of give ideas and to be an open forum. So the industry can come in here too, right? And it's a collaborative conversation. I think they did an amazing job.
We're going to use it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's, but it's imperative that they're a part of this process, because sometimes regulations seem scary, but really what it does is advances a business, it legitimizes a business, and it also opens up a lot of different, avenues of marketing that you weren't necessarily going to get just based on going through that process and being first to market in a state like this with this much attention, doing things in esports.
Does anyone want to touch on the idea of the benefit of wagering leagues in the city? The idea that recurring, so when we started our development of our project, one of the things a government official had told me was, New Jersey is competing with other states for tourism, right? Casinos are now all over the Northeast, they're pretty much everywhere. So whatever can bring people into the brick and mortar casinos is something that we're going to look favorable on. One of those ideas is being able to have esports tournaments. We talked about Evo yesterday, right? 10,000 people show up for 9 days, for a very long period of time. Do you see that as something Atlantic City? I was pointing to John. Do you see the benefits, and do you think it's practical to put that in motion?
Absolutely. Sports tourism is economic development. And yesterday, we talked a lot about parallels between Atlantic City and Las Vegas, which has become a sports powerhouse with the NHL, the NFL, soon Formula One racing. Vegas very likely to be next in line for NBA and Major League Baseball franchise. Atlantic City is positioned to have a similar location branding ability. And it is early in the curve to become a mecca for esports tournaments. Other examples, Indianapolis, which has successfully leveraged the NCAA tournaments each year. Charlotte, okay, the ACC just relocated headquarters in Charlotte. That's another example of a city that's incorporated sports tourism into their economic development platform. And another advantage of Atlantic City here is this idea of social impact, right? Atlantic City is the most diverse and one of the most economically distressed cities in America. So a lot of the tech companies want to invest in markets like Atlantic City as part of their ESG and social impact initiatives, particularly major trophy employers in this megaplex region, Comcast, soon JetBlue. Okay, it looks like that Spirit merger is going to go through finally. Exelon, okay, God willing, Netflix. I mean, how great would that be to get Netflix as a regional partner? So these are all narratives that I would look forward to seeing Andrew put to work, along with the Economic Development Authority.
Okay, so let's talk about Evo for a second. All right, we've watched it pretty much as people who game a little bit or a lot. We know what it is, right? We know where it is. We know when it is.
For the people
Does anybody in this room know
fighting
what
game.
Evo is?
It's a fighting. Take a bunch of
Other than the one person who games.
take a bunch of fighting games where people actually fight against each other and have a whole festival around that. That's what it
Okay,
is.
all right, so here's the thing. Evo is run by the gaming community. If you ask anyone in Las Vegas what Evo is, working in any hotel on pretty much every level, in the C level, they've never even heard of it. At MGM properties alone, they don't utilize these 10 to 15 to 20,000 people that show up for Evo. They don't even know what's going on. In their own hotel, they don't give them any kind of incentives. They don't market in any way. It just happens to be there. My brother and I visited the Allied Esport Arena, which is HyperX Arena, whatever. We're working on something with them. We went in, we talked to them, and we asked them, we said, during Evo, did you guys host any of the tournaments? The guy was like, yeah, we were scheduled to do it, but and it was next door at Mandalay Bay. He said, yeah, we were scheduled to do it, but such and such big company came in and bought out our whole place. And so we had to turn their tournaments away. So the kind of thing that you guys are talking about that's happening right now is music to my ears, because I've been here for years, and we're finally seeing on the where's the money to be made? The question that I was asked for years and years and years from the casinos. Well, it starts on the government level with tourism, all these other things. They're going to benefit from those, not exclusively from gamble, the actual money that people are tossing away or winning or whatever else. That's really that's just the God's honest truth. But Evo, I'm glad you brought it up, because there's a situation where they definitely could have incorporated, but both the gaming world and the casino world, other than our event, has not been put together. So therefore, they don't know how to capitalize on that. But here, with us, with this, the opportunities, even in the Bahamas or any of the other locations, as long as they start employing this, it's gonna move 100%. And to what John did, it's like, most definitely. Because Ari and I have run events here in this city, and we've always been happy with them, even though they were bootstrapped. But I can tell you that when we did get the properties to participate, even in the smallest way, it was a major win. So.
I mean, the thing I was gonna ask John was the difference between Atlantic City and Vegas is that so most of the Evo crowd tends to come from the Northeast and you travel to Las Vegas. The advantage that Atlantic City seems to have, I think Evo happens once a year, that Atlantic City can host these crowds on a more regular basis than annually because of the closeness of where they are located and where the city's located. It seems to be able to support more active gaming competitions in Las Vegas.
I would agree with that. The big obvious challenge is air service. And hopefully the Spirit merger will create an opening wedge to increase air service. I like with the new collaborations with Philadelphia Airport, the shuttle service here out of Atlantic City.
I that's great. It allows me to
That's
fly
true.
out of here without having to go on two different planes.
Just a big picture thought though. I mean, how you measure the success of hosting a tournament, it really puts an exclamation point on the need for state support, to be patient, realize this is such a new industry, and you can't judge. I always laugh every time a city puts a bid together for a tournament, a Super Bowl, an NFL draft, or an Olympic bid. All the naysayers and economists come out of the woodwork with a study that's based upon a very narrow criteria, like hotel rooms, different types of per diem calculations. The location branding impact of hosting a major event for Atlantic City will be off the charts valuable. It exposes a global audience, a young global audience, to Atlantic City for the first time.
Yep.
Influential people associated with the actual event or sponsorship relationships in town, developing a feel for Atlantic City. And even if that doesn't result in them relocating their company, they go back to their city around the nation and say positive things about Atlantic City. I mean, that's the big picture winning formula that exists in markets like Las Vegas,
Right.
related to sports.
And we were talking about like how Las Vegas has seen this model of a local municipality that's really working together to build a bigger voice, to attract more people to it. And they are very effective when they decide to do that. But they're not grabbing onto this as fast as the opportunity is here in New Jersey. While they're busy spinning and putting in the Formula 500, the race cars, and they're bringing the stadiums and all that, they're like kind of losing sight to this. So there is an opportunity now to jump ahead and grab that. And I don't know if any of you saw, like I did, a lot of people asked a lot of marketing before this event, but one of the memes that I created was this guy standing there in front of the sign that says "Welcome to New Jersey." I don't know if any of you got to see it, but and then there's a gamer standing there, and he's like, shh, he's going like this, and what I flash up on the screen underneath it, it says the Garden State, and I cross it out and I say the Esports State. Okay, so if that is the consensus of wherever it is, if you throw your hat into that ring, and that's the first announcement to the gaming community, to the general gaming community, that you're serious, but it's the follow through. Because you could also, the sort of the thing that can really get you is with this community, it happens in others, but they don't like excuses. You have to follow through. That's like I was talking about earlier in having the kind of history of paying out for tournaments. All these things matter. So it's one thing to say, yeah, the government's decided that this is a good way, good course of action, good way to draw people in, but it's a completely different thing to actually do it. And that once you've done that, that's all you really need to do for the gaming community. They will respect that.
There's two things we have to solve, right? So ironically, the harder part when you're getting customers is already kind of built in. The customers want what esports leagues and esports wagering, they want this to happen. The government is supporting it, right? These are the two hardest things. The regulators are allowing it to be regulated. What we're having issues with, and what we have to come and solve over the next 6 months, and sooner for me, is bringing the game publishers in. Because it's a catch-22. Every game publisher that we've spoken to wants this to happen. They don't want to be the first one. They don't want to be the first one because they don't want someone under the age of 18 spending money, or the game is fixed and something is bad press for that game company, you know? So part of the issue that we have to resolve collectively, because it can't be individually, is assuring the game publishers that it is safe to have wagers on video games in the city, because the government, the regulators, the industry, the casinos support it, right? And all these safeguards are built into it.
Yeah, I think you probably have the only market in the country that can say that, quite honestly. So, I mean, the folks here that represent that segment of the government in New Jersey, we've used the term probably a dozen times here, considered the gold standard.
Gold standard.
Right, but that's because they are. Sometimes a cliche is a cliche because it's true. So they are ahead of the curve. We are having those conversations. But the publisher is a tricky thing. I think it's more about making them understand the potential down the line for what this can become, rather than what this is now, which compared to their core business is meaningless. And I think the biggest thing that they're fearing is this going to affect the perception of my core business if my core business is a target market of much younger kids and I don't want focused on gambling? Now, there are games that's probably not relevant to at all, but there's definitely some where I could see a publisher being nervous.
Right, but let me ask you a question. How, when the NFL, wasn't the NFL initially adverse to wagering?
Every sports organization was fiercely adverse for
How was that resolved?
It was resolved by showing them the mass economic opportunity that they're missing out on that exists internationally.
Well, because it was being done anyway. People were gambling anyway.
Well, but it also evolved from a technical standpoint in Europe at a very high level and a very high rate, in a way that the American market could understand. As these companies started to consolidate globally, and you had gaming companies worldwide merge, it was like, well, why aren't we introducing what we're making money from in Europe here? So I think it became a shifted focus, and then clearly New Jersey leading the way in terms of breaking down sports betting barriers. But the technology had a lot to do in terms of driving the ease of making all of that happen. But I do think the conversation, Anthony, that you're talking about with game publishers, this isn't going to happen in 6 months, but there's in my opinion, a great opportunity for the companies like BetMGM, DraftKings, and FanDuel to partner with indie game studios and build esports-centered, casino-centered games, so that the publisher is in on the process from day one, the data's in on the process from day one, and they're at the head of the food chain for something.
Yeah.
Valorant didn't exist, 5 years ago?
2 years ago.
Right, 2 years ago.
I mean, Valorant.
Right, but I'm saying the development of it, right? So it started 3 years earlier, and then it was released and went through that whole cycle. But 5 years ago, one of the most popular esports games didn't exist. So how hard would it be for a group to build an FPS that was totally
Well, it's not that it's
esports-centered?
hard. It's not that it's hard. It's that if you're going to entice someone, they have to be familiar with the product. They can't learn it on the spot. They can't. That's what happened with GameCo.
Sure.
Right. So GameCo had these games that had never seen them before. They were on the floor. People who weren't familiar with it, didn't understand it, didn't play. So at some point, I agree with what you said about, because our company is taking a stance that we're going to publish our own games and find games to publish. But it's not Call of Duty. It's not John Madden football. It's not the big games. It's not Valorant.
There's no question. But again, that, what is the big game is constantly evolving. Now, there are franchises that are more stable. Obviously, you're talking about, some of the great examples, but Valorant is my example where it just came out of the blue, or
Right,
Fortnite.
but you do have those publishers similar. So I think
Yeah.
I think that what I'm leaning toward is the idea that part of all this is establishing security for those publishers to say, yes, somebody has our back. We're not going to go into this and find a lawsuit because of whatever reason something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong in everything, right? So
And it just comes down to those publishers having to look at the opportunity versus what the cost is, right? So if they look at the potential negative as far outweighing the opportunity, you're never going to get them to change their mind. But if you show, hey, not only is your perception of the negative very wrong because of all of these safeguards you mentioned, but you're missing the opportunity. The opportunity is way bigger than the potential negative. That's the narrative.
And I think that's our job collectively to prove that out.
Yes.
And the point of GameCo and the Gambling and these other ones, they did create a lot of those games in vacuum. And I say that because I constantly told them it would be a good idea for them to bring those games in raw form to a GameCon or some kind of festival and play test them with the gamers first. Because the bigger problem was that they created, the reason why they weren't getting played was because gamers, they didn't resonate with gamers, They were building these products for the casino industry to buy, not for the purpose of the gamer. They were trying to sell it to the C-level executives. But what we're talking about, even with the publishers, those guys, and it's Ari and my belief, that those guys will eventually, they will come along, but they're not the most necessary part, to your point, where if games are produced that gamers want to play, I have to go back to the thing my own quote, which is, it's the gamer, not the games, okay? Because as long as you have the offerings that they like and that they're willing to play in a community type situation or even individually, then you're not going to have the same, outcome. And the big publishers are going to have no choice but to join in the conversation because all of the play will be happening and the proof will already be for them. Because there are plenty of games out there. You don't really necessarily need to start with the premier titles.
Yeah, a lot of the premier titles are already being bet on all around the world anyway. So I think the recipe for success for New Jersey is for the DGE, the EDA, the casino, and the publisher to get around the table and figure it out.
Right.
And when
We
you
were
get
having these discussions before COVID.
yes,
Started
exactly.
to-
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, before COVID, we met with the Casino Association of New Jersey, explained to them the opportunity we saw around esports, and their feedback was, "We get it. We know we need to change, and we need your help." And then COVID hit.
And
So-
the Entertainment Software Association, them too.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had very positive conversations with that entity, and I think that they're exactly who we want to reach out to have a direct conversation with the software industry to say, this is what we believe the opportunity is, and what kind of incentives do we need to give you to come down here and start building game studios in the same manner these movie studios have been flocking to New Jersey through the same incentive programs.
It's not a new conversation. I mean, I had just moved to Palm Springs, and there was a local municipality, and they realized that they wanted to draw more jobs to Coachella Valley, where I live, and they're not that far from LA, so they're like 2.5 hours, and it is sort of the more affordable place in California where people can set up studios, and they were behind the idea, but they didn't back it up. So my brother and I were like, okay, you're not going to back it up, and here's the call from New Jersey. So the point is that yes, I mean, all that stuff will come. There are a lot of other places that want to do it as well, and you guys have right now the opportunity to move it quicker, and anybody else in this room too, who even from another location of this municipality, now is the time to start, plowing the fields and getting this stuff to work very quickly.
So, John, you've seen economic development zones throughout different cities that you've visited and have a lot of knowledge about. What can we do here in Atlantic City? Who needs to do what? How do we help move this part of the discussion forward from your perspective?
It's really about leadership, okay? And the sustained support from the state is critical. It's great to see that that's the relationship that exists with the Economic Development Authority. I think the real trump card, okay, and what distinguishes esports from the economic development perspective is that it's all about infrastructure. It's about talent infrastructure. It's about STEM skill sets. It's about diversity, the disabled elements of the labor market that are drawn to esports, okay, versus traditional types of sports. And it's about real estate infrastructure. I mean, the same high-speed broadband that Continent 8 is doing that will help Atlantic City attract other industries that will allow high-speed secure internet, like healthcare, fintech, multimedia. It also helps minority-owned small businesses. Okay, so that's a unique benefit, economic development thing that distinguishes esports versus other types of industries. It's really an industry of the future. It's going to take patience. It's going to take really a sustained commitment from the state to measure success in the smartest long-term way.
So when you say the state, you also mean the Stockton Esports Innovation Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we define esports as a resilient industry, which is where our focus is as an EDA across multiple sectors in the state, but an industry that another COVID outbreak is not going to disrupt because of the mobile nature of what you can do with esports and how it's a technology backbone sector. So the long-term viability is there. It's not going to disappear because of forces that you can't control. And so again, it's going to take time, but I think we're making progress with this center. And I think the industry will look at this and say, these guys in New Jersey are really proactively understanding our industry, and it's the place to come and grow your business.
Yesterday we were talking about the idea of creating some sort of organization, because that's the topic right now, that would facilitate discussions in the state in an organized manner, because this is a great first step. This conversation with the publishers has to happen. But if I have that conversation, and I have had that conversation, I may be successful, but is that going to help somebody else? I know of another company, one of our competitors has had very difficult discussions, and they're much larger than us. And I suggested to them that we put a whole bunch of our companies kind of together to make a open pitch to the gaming publishers to say, look, all of us collectively are following these standards, and this is what you can expect from this industry, right? Because I think right now you're seeing company A, company B, company C, and that really that would scare me if I was a publisher. Yeah, I was a publisher when I was at Disney. I don't want to see individual efforts. I want to see something that I can rely on. And I think the Esports Innovation Center here could take the lead with the EDA to say, look, we're going to set those standards, and we're going to tell you that we're behind the safety and security of the players. And then I think the gaming industry, the publishers, will take a step forward. Right now we're looking for a step forward to have the first live wagering event in Atlantic City. Some of the people here, some guys know what we're trying to do, but our challenge is actually procuring a game, which you would think is the easiest thing to do, but it's actually the hardest thing to do. So we have everything ready: financing, casino, location, entertainment. We just don't have the game yet, and we're going to go out there and try to pitch different studios over the next couple of weeks to bring that pitch in. But once we do that, I realize that'll make it easier for the next group. So that's sort of my journey and my difficulty. So I'm giving you the direct sort of my experience to say this is what I could use from the Stockton Innovation Center. And I know Bill and I have been in discussions with a lot of third parties. The Entertainment Software Association was one of them. But I think we probably should start that, because we did stop during COVID because everything kind of stopped.
Yeah, no, I think time is right for us to look at some sort of esports commission led by the state.
Yes.
That coalesce a lot of stakeholders in the industry and make our pitch to the publishers about why this is the right place to come to start wagering in the United States.
Plus, I think the facility development and the infrastructure development that we discuss as being core to this strategy coming to fruition takes a lot more than just this office, than Stockton and EDA. It really takes, as you said, a total commitment. And it also takes, from a strategy standpoint, saying, okay, well, is Boardwalk Hall going to be the base of our operations? Are we going to try to make that a world-class esports arena? What would that look like? Same with the Phillips Theater that's next to it. There's a multitude of issues that have to be worked out, but once that strategy gets implemented, follow through is the key. But I think if you put those pieces in place, you already have in my opinion, I hate to throw stupid statistics out there because 20% of statistics are made up. But we already have probably 3/4 of the infrastructure in place to make this amazing. Proximity to all these casinos being together, 4 miles square radius or whatever it is around this area versus Las Vegas that's completely spread out. The fact that all these hotel rooms are here. Once there is sort of a home base for esports, we can bring those things in. And then I do believe all of these other things that you're trying to bring in terms of a constant operation ongoing, the way a casino is, right? 24 hours, 7 days a week, people are playing and generating activity. I think those parts come together, and that's what makes this city an esports city, right? It's the combination of the big events coupled with a constant activity and flow of activity and interactivity of the people that come in here that can get those experiences. They won't be able to get elsewhere, right? At home, playing against their friends, etc.
I mean, China has developed plans for esports cities that take into account STEM education and streaming and technology development. But I think we have all those elements here too. So those cities are being built from the ground up. I think everything's already here. One way or the other, we got them here. But I love the idea of the Esports Commission. I think we need some news on this panel.
Well, it's free. Tim Sullivan talked about the public-private partnership that
Yeah.
this center represents and how, as a state, that's how we see economic advancement happening. And so the commission would just be the next iteration of that partnership relative to what our goals are.
And I think it makes perfect sense. I'm going to go back to John. John, your experience with commissions, have you, and this is just sort of for the public at large, or a little bit for me, how effective can commissions be?
Be very effective. I mean, some of the most successful economic development efforts were the result of commissions being formed, policymakers, the academic institutions, and leading members of the business community. The students of economic development always talk about Kansas City's prime time campaign, right, which was the result of the leading employers, Hallmark and H&R Block, working with the Hunt family for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Ewing Kaufman, legendary owner of the Royals. And that primetime campaign was the most successful economic development campaign in history. It led a whole new wave of corporate office development into Kansas City. Similar opportunities exist here for Atlantic City based upon Stockton's role, the support of the state, and the unique geographic assets here, proximity to New York, proximity to Philadelphia, the hospitality infrastructure, the 17,000 hotel rooms, and this new remote working, live, work, play model that Atlantic City should really be competing in. And I said this yesterday, developers we work with, we work with some of the nation's top developers, private developers, are looking at Atlantic City now the way that they looked at Coney Island 15 or 20 years ago as a premier live, work, play destination. And the other big final thought there is, again, social impact.
Can you tell us a little bit about Coney Island today, after that decision?
Sure. I mean, Coney Island was a very beleaguered, it was the laughing stock of the New York metropolitan area. And now it's a premier place with millennials, Generation Z moving in. John Castellantis, the owner of WABC Radio, is doing major development projects there. And it looks like Sunny Isles, these high rises. And similar opportunities exist here in Atlantic City. This is some of the most cost-effective oceanfront real estate. And it almost sounds glib to talk about the skyline, but there's only a few skylines that are on the ocean. I mean, something as simple as that. You think about, obviously, Boston, New York / Jersey City, Miami, Atlantic City, and then that's it until Jacksonville, and then Miami. So, and again, goodwill. A lot of smart people from around the country, influential people, who want to see Atlantic City thrive.
I drove by Coney Island 2 weeks ago, and I didn't recognize it.
Really?
Yeah, in terms of how great it looked.
It's
Wow.
amazingly built up.
And all within 15 years.
Yeah, and there's other examples. Asbury Park is another example of a place that went through major renovation. So the opportunity certainly exists here, and all of those peripherals are there. And really, once you bring in high-tech, high-paying jobs into the area, the citizens demand everything they want the amenities, they want it to be nice, they want their sports facilities and all of those things, and that's what you saw in Las Vegas. The first time I visited Vegas in the early '90s, the population was 850,000, and the Strip was there, but there was basically nothing else anywhere near there. Now, I mean, you mentioned the sports development there. They also have AAA baseball. They also have USL Championship Soccer. MLS is knocking on the door there. Like that is a full-on sports culture, and they attract a multitude of different. NBA Summer League comes to Nevada. So these are all things that, in my opinion, Atlantic City needs to learn the lessons of, because we have no sports culture here, zero. Everything we've ever had here basically fails. I own the minor league sports team, Atlantic City FC. We're the only team in Atlantic City representing the city in single A soccer. Play 4 months a year. So there's amazing opportunity to build a sports culture with a city that's got a worldwide brand. Nobody recognizes how many firsts happened in Atlantic City. Like, we're a mile from Bader Field. I bet nobody in this room knows that's where the word airport was coined. Press of Atlantic City, 1918, Robert Woodhouse coined the term airport, describing Bader Field right over there. Atlantic City.
They don't call it Bader Airport.
They don't. Yeah, it's weird. But Atlantic City Country Club, which is a couple of miles away from here in Northfield, down the road from where you live, is the birthplace of the birdie, where the term birdie was coined in golf. The first boardwalk is in eyesight of everybody here. This city is filled with firsts. We have 5 examples of Monopoly games that are esports focused. Monopoly Roblox, Monopoly, this. The game Monopoly was based on the city of Atlantic City. So this place has tremendous history. It has a history of constantly reinventing itself. And it has every opportunity to use this technology as a way to really catapult a diversification to the casino side of things, and really a way to make those two come together, in my opinion, in a fascinating way.
I couldn't think of a better way to drop. We're at the end, and we're 2 minutes over. My organization is going to lean very heavily on all of the people here, John, to give you a call. So this is a great conversation. I'm very excited about the future. Thank you for putting on the esports, casino esports conference. I think this is something that's going to lead to a lot of future development, and I'm very happy to have been part of it. I want to thank everybody here, the panelists. Thank you for coming up. I think you're going to say some words now.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just did. That was sort of my closing remarks.
I gotta take a selfie here.
I will take a selfie.
I don't have enough selfies. You guys ready?
No.
Am I in this picture? That's all.
All right,
Thank
so,
you.
All right.
so Andrew,
I will say a few things from the podium, just very, very quickly. First of all, before we get out of here, I just want to especially thank the EDA and Stockton University, because really, it's almost a year to the date that we first came across each other, and I felt like I was the right fit to lead this place and build a mission for the center. And I want to tell you, it's been one of the most pleasurable experiences in my life working with the team at the EDA and Stockton University as a collaborative effort. I want to thank Amon Green for coming from Green Bay, because he's been a consultant with the EIC helping us out. And, I have always said the crossover between sports and esports is huge, and there's a lot of lessons both groups can learn from each other, both from marketing, from actual play, and structure. And Amon is a testament to that. So I really want to thank him for coming. And I want to thank everybody in this room for coming too, because this was an incredibly well-attended event. We had a lot of people online that got to tune in, and I'm very grateful for you guys doing that. And Ari and Ben, especially, for all the hard work that you guys have put in over the last 6 months. So if you guys can give them a round of applause, they really worked very hard. And we plan on making this an annual event, something that builds every single year. So, we'll be knocking on doors and sending out emails as soon as this thing ends to get thoughts on how to make it better and to build it up for next year. I also want to point out to everybody that EIC is now officially open, and the way we're going to be operating is through a series of programs, classes, et cetera, and B2B opportunities that are going to come through here. So there's no set times, but if you want to reach out to me, Andrew at eic.gg or Andrew at esportsnj.org, both go to the same spot. You're welcome to email. and we can set stuff up, and we plan on doing as much in the community as humanly possible. So look forward to that. And I want to thank all of you for coming. So get home safe.